Good afternoon, everyone, and a warm welcome to Quickbooks Labs. Quickbooks Labs is a monthly podcast designed to be the place to learn all about the world of QuickBooks and other accounting software. I am one of your hosts, Aaron Patrick, a chartered accountant and owner of an accounting firm called Boffix. On the first Wednesday of each month, we'll be hanging around these microphones to talk about all the latest news, tips, tricks for QuickBooks and the rest of the accounting world. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, the one and only Ash. How's it going, Ash?
Fantastic. Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, it's myself, Ash Beetson, accountant, bookkeeper, trainer, writer, jack of all trades, master of none. Anyway, over to you, Aaron. How does this work?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting a signed copy of your book soon. So maybe we'll talk about that at the end. But yeah. We have an actual author on the co-host at the moment, so yeah, looking forward to that one. Perfect stocking filler, I'd say.
Yeah, just in time for Christmas. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not seeing how big that book is, but I'm sure you could just about get it into a stocking filler if you could.
You could squeeze it in there. You could bend it around.
Kindle edition, you just buy them the Kindle and stick it through there. I mean, that's another option for them, isn't it? Highly recommended. Anyway, today we have an absolute cracker installed for you, but first let's figure out how this all works. So this is the brand new format. The format is that we're going to be on a monthly basis as opposed to 2 weekly. And we are live to the world at our regular time of 4:30 UK PM, UK time, or 10:30 US Central Time. I assume that's still the same with all the time movements, everything else. But yeah, hopefully it's around about that time. So if you're listening to this back at a later time, then why not think about joining us live? That way you get involved with the show and ask us anything using the chat box. So ask us questions at the end. And who am I was sure to keep up honest and be afraid to ask those burning questions. So don't forget to use that comment box if needed. Furthermore, we're now live on podcasting services around the globe, so feel free to subscribe on the podcasting service of choice. Ash, what's the agenda for today's show?
So, Aaron, we've got a few things that we need to cover. There is QuickBooks Connect, which sort of flew by all of a sudden, I think it's the Get Connected UK version. QuickBooks Connect is actually happening in the US as we speak. We've got some news as we speak, literally. Some news on with the bank, and new reconciliations and different options on the dashboard, and some news on the self-assessment. And you're covering it all, Aaron. I feel extremely guilty that you've dug all this useful stuff up, and I just sit back and we'll just chip in where here and there. But I know you love talking, so I'll leave it all to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. No, I think this one's going to be an interesting one, especially with QuickBooks Connect actually as we speak. So we have some breaking news. We have some new features that was announced over in the world of QuickBooks Connect US. But we will talk about the UK one, or lack of UK one, UK conference later down the line. So let's concentrate first of all on the US and some of the big features that they brought into play. Now I'm just going to share screen a little bit, but I'm not 100% sure how good this is going to come out, because I've basically copied or brought in the video as we needed to. So let me share screen now. Actually, you're joining in tomorrow, aren't you? Or you're going to be looking at tomorrow. That's the QuickBooks Accountant version of it, isn't it?
I am, yeah. So the QuickBooks Connect US runs from, I think it's about 7 o'clock in the morning US time. But the main events sort of start around, I think it's probably about 9 a.m. And it works out about 3 p.m. UK time. So, you can sometimes register for these. If you do go to try to get to the QuickBooks US site, even if you're based in the UK, you can still register. So I've registered and received my link back. So if you're interested in finding out what's going on in other parts of the world, it's worth a look.
Yeah, because the US one's always one of the most important ones to check out on, isn't it? Because not every feature will make its way to the UK, but there's normally an opportunity for at least a couple of those features to get there. And it just gives us a bit of an insight of what they're concentrating on, doesn't it, Ash?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and definitely, I can just see with your screen the MailChimp that's bound to come across.
Yeah. Yeah, so they've actually brought up the MailChimp. I quite like the way that they described it, actually. So because, well, complete honesty here, when we first kind of heard about the MailChimp integration, we were a bit confused, weren't we? It was a bit like, okay, that's a left field acquisition. That's not something we would have expected. Sage just bought GoProposal, and Intuit's bought MailChimp, but it didn't quite feel like the right or something that would be beneficial to us as accountants. But actually, the more we look into it, the more details. And we as a firm, like our firm now, while using MailChimp, we've signed up. We're plowing resources in there to see what we can do with it and everything else. And actually, the more we start using it, the more it's starting to click as to what it's going to be useful for. And the way they kind of described it was, I love this, their description was, it's the new Avenger for your accountancy firm. They say it's drop dead simple way in which you can actually get new clients, new ways, and sorry, not for accounting firm, but this particular one is designed to give you an indication of how it can be useful for the whole of QuickBooks user base. So the idea would be, it'll be a way that you as a user of QuickBooks can get more customers and get more people coming back and returning to you and having that integration and everything else. And I'll show you in a minute what it looks like, but the integration looks really, really, really slick. So that's quite a bold statement, I'd say, at the start of it. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, yeah, very much so. But like you, Aaron, we do use MailChimp so for NetTracker, and and it is, I mean, it's dead easy to use, and I'm sure they'll make it even easier, if there's got the QuickBooks integration within there as well. So if you're able just to send stuff directly to your existing customers, just to keep them updated with what you're doing and what your plans are, and what I think it's great.
Yeah, so this is kind of the integration that they were showing. So this is how it's supposed to all come in. It's about making sure your tags and everything are coming through. And then the idea here is that you can bring in all of that audience that you've got on QuickBooks so that you can then market to them nicely. But it's not just a case of names and addresses and stuff, but it's actually what they've bought from you. So the idea is it's this deep integration of what's been bought, and it'll update real time. So if one of these customers was to go out the way and buy something, then when they do buy that item, it's going to update it and it's going to bring it into their MailChimp area. So that's what they're really aiming for. It's this tight integration so that we can, make the most of that data, see what the click rates are, and really try and automate a lot of that kind of goodwill and that kind of marketing aspect of it. So I think that's going to be really, really powerful.
That looks pretty good, but they must be integrated with something else, though, as well as MailChimp. I'm just looking at that purchased your QuickBooks Sprouts plants that I could just about make out on that screen. So if you've brought them from, whether you purchased them from Amazon or somewhere, there must be something else. Well, I'm guessing there, if it's fully automated, that is. Otherwise, it's a case of, someone has actually had to key that in.
Well, I think in America, they've got a little bit more integration with the QB Commerce, haven't they? Because they did mention a lot about the phrase of an incomplete what's the phrase? Incomplete sales box. So the idea that mail cart, isn't it? So the idea then that you as a user of that site, you've gone in, you look to buy something, and then you've not gone and completed it. So maybe you've added certain items to your cart, but you never press that buy now button. They were talking a lot about how you could automate the fact that if they've not pressed buy now, well, let's send them an email to try and G them on, maybe give them a discount or something like that. So I think in America's QuickBooks, they've got a lot more integration with QB commencers and stuff like that. So I think that's where it's coming from the very short demo they gave us on here anyway.
Yeah. Oh, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, absolutely. If someone's gone to their site, bought something, and then, logged out, then, if it's still sitting there as a sort of temporarily not yet complete, let's say an incomplete shopping basket. Yeah, no, I think that's great. Absolutely.
Yeah. Then they turn their attention to the mobile app. And when they turn their attention to the mobile app, they were basically talking about the fact that you can now switch between cars. So they've obviously got some sort of improvement to make that mileage. We all know that the mileage was kind of not rushed out. That's the wrong phrase, but it's definitely not a complete product yet, is it? There's definitely still bits to go. Then they moved on to Receipt Snap, but we've already got that live in the UK, so that's great to see. But then when it got interesting, though, was this bit here. So they kind of, I don't know if you've seen on the mobile app now, but there's an opportunity to review transactions. So you can see that's looking really nice. But when it came to their sending out debtors, they've got a nice new kind of view here. So a little bit different than what we get. But it's kind of got the same functionality, I think, hasn't it? There's not really anything majorly extra there. But what did there was the option to send a reminder though in the mobile app. I thought that was new. But what did look really good was their new invoicing tool we get to see for the first time. So if we go over to the invoicing bit, here it is. All right, so we've been talking about this a few times, haven't we? About this new quotation element, new estimate element they've got in. So as you can see here, you're kind of building it up, putting that in, and then they've got this option for a deposit request just there. Can you see it?
Yeah.
And also an option to put attachments on as well. So I'll let it play actually, but you can see how they're adding those items into this estimate, putting those items in there. That client request though, and that deposit that gets paid, once you've accepted and it comes through, what they're talking about is the fact that because in this scenario using QuickBooks QuickBooks bank account, then that money is available to use straight away. So the scenario they were using, that you might want to deposit to kind of get some materials for the job. So it might be a case of having to order a particular item in to get it. What they're saying is that as soon as it's been accepted and that deposit's been paid, well, that money is instantly available for you to then go and use to spend that on the whatever items it is that it needs to be.
Yeah, I mean that's really good. So almost is part of that type of factoring invoice discounting where you're getting some of that advance from Intuit, basically.
For that £300 or whatever deposit the client's paid, it seems that way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And more on the factoring side of thing later. But I just think that's what that tight integration of having, staying in the QuickBooks ecosystem, not using in the UK we could use a Square or Stripe, or we could use a third party app to collect those payments for us and everything else. But I think what they're trying to show is if we use those tight integrations, these are sort of benefits we're getting. And that idea that as soon as someone's paid for something, we can go out there and buy whatever it is that we need to buy. Imagine you're a builder or a plumber or something, you need to just go buy the bits that they need to go and do that job. Well, that's going to help you, isn't it? It's going to help your workflow.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So I thought that was really, really, really interesting. I mean, we don't know if that means that we're going to get it in the UK or not, if that's something that will come our way. But I thought that was a really nice little innovation on that one. The next one, we kind of speculated about this the other day. Oh, just a quick one. I think this would be US only, but in their bank now, they can take photos of checks and that money can be deposited directly in. So without having to go to a bank account, bank and pay it in, they can take photos of it and go in there. In the UK, we have that in NatWest and Starling, those sort of things. So we have that facility in other banks. So that'd be nice to see if that comes to the QuickBooks Bank as well when that comes through.
Yeah.
We kind of speculated it, but there's the proof that there's that new card reader that's going in the US. Again, I don't know if we'll get it here in the UK. It's probably unlikely, isn't it?
I don't know. I think there could be a good chance that we'll have something similar. Instead of having to rely on Square or one of the other options. Yeah. I can't see any reason why we won't get that over here at some point. It might not be for 18 months, 2 years, but I think it will definitely come.
Yeah, I mean, I would love it here because I think the again, that tight integration would be really, really powerful. But we never got point of sale, did we? We've never had a point of sale solution over here. So I don't know. Maybe it's, and it's weird how it's not come over here. There's a lot of things that don't come here because of licensing issues and stuff like that, that you can understand. But I can't imagine the licensing issues, or I suppose unless it's connected with the QuickBooks Bank, and maybe that's the issue.
I would guess, I'm just sort of surmising a little bit here, is that for the size of the company that Intuit is, it will look at its main customer base, and let's say 70-80% of their users are in the US.
Yeah.
And how many of those users in the US are currently using this sort of function, e-commerce?
Yeah.
So they're way up then how many of those users in the US are using e-commerce, and they might sort of apply the same sort of percentage, how many users have they got in the UK and how many might need to use e-commerce. I'm sure they've got lots of statistics in the background, and then they'll think, well, okay, so how much money do we have to invest in, sorting out a brand new bank that's going to be UK based, and and all of the development that goes along with it, to cut all of those costs that are covered, because QuickBooks users don't like to automatically receive, let's say, a 50% increase in their QuickBooks subscription to use it. And I think that's what they have to sort of level up, is that this is going to cost millions to be able to use it. So we can't really do it just yet. I think that's probably where it comes from.
Yeah, no, I see that. I think you're right. And one thing I've realized on that card reader puck as well is there's no place for you to physically have your buttons, the number pad. And in the UK, we have various degrees of success with that one. So the Square Reader, for example, is exactly that. It's just a puck. And the way they get around it is you hand over your device and they put the number in the device. But I've always found that's sometimes a little bit off-putting to the end consumer, because they're like, well, I've got to put my PIN number in your device sort of idea. There's always been a bit of disconnect there. So, I wonder if the UK would be a bit kind of the same sort of idea, where they'll be a bit more uneasy about using it. But I suppose contactless is up to £100 now, isn't it? So maybe it's a thing of the past.
Yeah.
Cool. The next bit is a huge announcement. Now, we always knew that this was coming. Well, I say we always knew it. We speculated, haven't we, about this whole idea of getting paid up front, a factoring service from QuickBooks. But they've announced it now, and they've announced it for the US at least. So the idea is, as we can see here, so if I just press play, the idea here is this get paid up front option down the bottom. So you press that one. And it says there, look, you get 97% of your invoice in advance. So the idea is that QuickBooks themselves are going to front up that cost for you and get paid. And the best part about this was that if you get to return that money within 30 days, so if you pay that loan back basically within 30 days, completely no interest at all. To have to worry about. So what do you think to that one?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. I mean, you just wonder what the what the charge is going to be if you don't pay 30 days. That's what went by there. That's great. But what if, I'm not a dampener on it, but no, it's fantastic. If you've got customers that generally do pay you within 30 days, no issues, but you get that money immediately, fantastic. Especially like when we just said a minute ago that sometimes you might need to buy materials or whatever it is as part of that job, and you haven't got to sort of fund that project because you've got a lot of it already. So
definitely, I think for me, like the biggest part about this that's going to be so powerful and useful to small businesses is that most of those factoring options that we have available to, if we wanted to replicate this, we could go to factoring services and we can put them into play. And for some small businesses, they live and die off factoring, don't they? It's a necessity for some small businesses. And what I like about this is that unlike factoring, where it's you have to give them most of the time you have to give them the whole of your debtors list, and if there's no hand ifs or buts, you have to give the whole of it. You can't pick and choose.
Yeah.
And on this, you're just picking and choosing which invoice is one you feel like it's going to be maybe problematic, or which invoice you need up front, and all this and the other. And you've got that so much more flexibility, haven't you? It's not having to apply and hope and send it all over and everything else. It's literally all you need to do is just apply. You can use it ad hoc, and I think that's really powerful, isn't it?
Yeah, I think this is fantastic because, years ago I used to help a few businesses that have factoring, and it used to be an absolute nightmare. Actually just recording the transactions and reconciling the whole thing. So I'm hoping that basically all of that will be done for you, because it will know what bank it's gone into and where you're going to receive the advance from, and all those entries should pretty much be done. And like you said, Aaron, it was all or nothing basically. You had to. As soon as you raised an invoice, you had to then, at the end of each day, you had to send all the information off to the factory company. These are all the invoices that we've done today, and then they will forward, what's, a percentage of those. So not having to do all of that, which used to take ages, is going to, just save a lot of time and just free up the cash as and when you need it. So that's a winner, definitely.
And I mean, I haven't seen anything of this, but I imagine, and I don't quote us on this, but I imagine this is only going to be available if you use QuickBooks Bank, or however, I don't know what the official term is yet for their new QuickBooks Bank or Intuit Bank or whatever they're going to call it, but I imagine it's all going to be part of that. And one really cool aspect I saw of this, it wasn't in this particular one, it was in a kind of another element I was watching, was the fact that it interacts with your cash flow. So it's not just so you can see it from this screen, but if you look on your cash flow forecast and see that you've got a problem, well, it might give you the option then of, well, why not take this money sooner that you're going to be due, in 15 days time, to cover the fact that you need to pay your employees or whatever it's going to be. So that's really cool, isn't it? That you've got those kind of, when you're in that ecosystem, it's all starting to come together. You should be able to get some really good tools to really help businesses through those times.
Yeah, no, that would be great.
Okay, the next one, we got to look at, speaking of the QuickBooks Bank, actually, we got to look at another insight into again, this is the American version of the bank. So, we may not get these features, we may not get any of this, but we're hoping, we know that the QuickBooks Bank of some sorts is coming to the UK. So that'll be great. But what I really like about this one is this here, auto save for taxes. So the idea then is that in the banking area, it looks like there's going to be the option for, they've said that there is an auto save rule option. So the idea here is that, and they call it envelopes in the US. In the UK, we're calling them spaces or items like that. So the idea is that within your bank, you can ring fence certain pots, if you like, and have certain pots of money that you're going to be putting for certain elements. And in here, it's giving you the opportunity to automatically save for certain events. So in this case, it's your sales tax, which is VAT in our eyes, isn't it? But you can see here, but you can set QuickBooks to automatically save for you your VAT figure.
Yeah, I mean, this is great to be able to, because quite often, I guess, as you need some accountant perhaps, or to first of all sort of say, work out an average of what your VAT is. If it's fairly consistent, you'd sort of think, well, last time I had to pay sort of £3,000 worth of VAT. So let's say over a space of 12 weeks, what's that? 300 quid a month week. So, £900 a month or whatever it might be. So once you've worked out your averages and then thought, well, I'll create that rule. I mean, in theory, these things are great, but it all depends on how available that cash is. because how can I put this? In the best will of the world, some small business owners will put money to one side, and then all of a sudden they think, "Oh, what to do with that money?" So I'll just take it back again.
Yeah,
I suppose definitely. It's just if you can be very strict, then it is great, because you almost like it goes into an account that you can't get to until you basically lock it down. You cannot get to that until a specific date. Maybe, or a good one is if you're in partnership with someone and it requires two signatures, 2 approvals to transfer the money, so that you can think, we must keep that for tax, so don't go spending it. That's my little advice for the day. But other than that, no, it's great. It's a great idea.
Yeah, I think you're spot on.
Yeah, you didn't have to say.
I wonder how far they take it, because like you were saying there in that example was, that you set the rule of £900 a month or £1,000 a month or whatever that figure is going to go into your savings account. But, they have the technology, they have the ability here, and just looking at what's on screen now, have been able to automate that even further. Because if QuickBooks knows that you need £604.25 for your VAT return, well, why not transfer that element over? Do you know what I mean? They could take it that far if they needed to, and I think that's where really the magic could possibly happen here in terms of helping small businesses.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, well, if let's say if it sort of knows what your liability is, so it's say £604.25, and it says, okay, well, I'm going to put that amount away to one side. And if it actually was able to sort of, like that, in 3 weeks' time, say your VAT liability is £1,204.25. So far, you've put away £604.25. You need them to put away another £600, and we'll do that for you. I mean, that's what dreams are made of, almost. It still doesn't stop the business owner from dipping in and taking it out, though.
But at least it was away for a bit. It was out of the hands for a tiny bit. Hopefully, if you read here, it says sales tax was calculated for 2 new invoices this week. No need to do anything. We'll put that aside for you.
Oh, great! I mean, fantastic. Yeah. Perhaps I'm being a little bit harsh on the small business owner, but I've met many in my time, so I know what they can be like. But if it sort of puts it out of their current account, then hopefully it will pretty much sort of do that job for them.
Definitely. Here's a view we got of, again, this is the American one, so apologies, this may never happen in the UK, it may never come over here, but there is a copy of the of what the interface could look like, and straight away that's given me lots of kind of good vibes there, because that's very, very similar to the Revolut kind of look to it, in terms of there's that virtual card in the bottom right hand corner. So you can get your info and make payments virtually through there. There's a planner at the top there, so I assume that's that cash flow forecasting tool that I was talking about. I assume that's going to be available to it, and the fact that it's all being managed directly in your QuickBooks interface, I think that's going to be really, really powerful. It's showing you how much is in your main account, what's in the envelopes, the transactions that come through. And you'd imagine it will automate a lot of those transactions for you. So, yeah, you can see there envelope-wise, they're putting away money for a new truck, money for their payroll. It can be moved instantly between the two. So, yeah, it's looking good. I'm really excited for this. I think this could be a really good enhancement to businesses.
No, that is a great idea, because if you are trying to save up for something, and perhaps you don't want to take a loan out, but you think, okay, well, my truck, just like that example is there, it's on its way out. It might last me another year, but I'll start putting something away for the next 12 months, at least for a deposit. Then, that is a really good idea.
Yeah, I love it. I've got a lot of things, and what I'm hoping for, the ultimate for me with this debit card here, these virtual debit cards. I don't know if you've seen Revolut, but you get the opportunity to create multiple of these, and you can create one-time use ones, and those one-time use cards are brilliant. Like the idea that, a staff member could ask for a particular, might need to pay for whatever they need to pay for. Drum them up a one-time use card. They pay for that item. Everything's done and dusted. There's no security risk, no anything else. Yeah, and if you remember, the technology behind the UK card system is going to be based on the same as Revolut, so it's the same background to it. So fingers crossed we get the same sort of functionality.
Yeah, no, that is pretty good.
And then final bit that I want to talk about. This one's a little bit more controversial in my opinion. Where is it gone? There's the MailChimp stuff we talked about already. So that's just kind of talking a little bit more. But this enhancement to payroll. So first of all, in the US, they're getting very much into that workforce app. You've used the workforce app a few times, haven't you, Ash, when you've done your Quickbooks desktop? Yeah. So they're really pushing that as like a big tool, which is great. In the US, they're adding some extra benefits in there, including the ability to add benefits. So that it's not just about your payroll, but you can add benefits through there as well, which would be great. Kind of this whole onboarding tool, which is great. This is wonderful. This is that I use this in our firm now. It's so much easier to just send off a link, and they basically sign themselves up for you. It's fantastic. Provide the data. But the bit that was interesting was all this new track time functionality, which reminds me very much of T-Sheets, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I really do hope actually that comes into advanced payroll, because when I was running the advanced payroll webinars up to a few months ago, so I sort of did it when Quickbooks Advanced Payroll came in the UK, and then they basically discontinued the desktop payroll.
Yeah.
And there was a huge upset basically by a lot of desktop users, because they could record time, in desktop, which could be converted into, hours on jobs, which isn't really available in QuickBooks Payroll. There are some workarounds you can do, but workarounds are great, but it's not as good as having the actual thing. Now, if they are able to, really get time, which the employee can do on their phone, and if they can get that mapped to a job, which can be rechargeable time, and also get on the payroll, then that will, for contractors and the like, that will be a huge bonus, because that's what it's really, sorely lacking at the moment. So,
like you said, there's workarounds, but those workarounds are painful to implement, aren't they? Especially on scale. So you're right. This bit here is they've almost like taken on Teams, Slack, those sort of ideas where you can actually have almost like a chat function within your payroll for your team. So the idea that they can communicate to one another and everything else that goes with it. So yeah, it looks interesting. We'll have to kind of see if it comes to UK, but B, if it's something that catches on. But the idea is cool, isn't it? That you can kind of chat away and that between teams. And you'll see here that it's very much stealing from T-Sheets as well as this whole location mapping and everything else. So yeah, interesting take. I wasn't expecting the payroll functionality to go that way. What do you think?
Oh, I think that's great. And actually what you just put on there about the almost like that Teams, integrations, more similar chatting between your colleagues. I'm just thinking of a client that I used to help a few years ago, and they were a firm of architects. And I remember them asking me at the time, can our employees record time on their phone? And then at that time they couldn't, and T-Sheets wasn't even about then. But they would usually have 3 or 4 people at least working on one sort of architectural project. So there'd be a leader and then people that will assist. So for them, to be working on a particular project and say, well, I've just done this, that, and the other, and for everyone maybe working on the same project to sort of see what they're doing and what notes they've done. I mean, that could be invaluable to a lot of businesses. Because otherwise, you know what it's like, you know, even in an accountancy firm, you might go to someone and say, oh, have you got that bank reconciled yet? Because we need to get the VAT done. Or have you done this? Because we not need to get the tax return, you know, prepared. So I mean, the opportunities on this sort of thing are endless if you think about it, because otherwise it's a case of, you know, phone calls, emails back and forth to your employees. Whereas if something's done on a job and it's noted on the job and someone can just scroll onto that job and say, oh, that's been done, I think it's magic.
Definitely. Yeah. And it's especially with this new hybrid world, isn't it? I think that's when it's really going to come to fruition, isn't it? Where you've got people who aren't always in the same room and everything else, like you were saying then. I think that's going to be massively, massively powerful.
Yeah, I mean, we had that conversation before we started, Aaron, that you're employing a lot of people remotely, and so you might set them off to do a job, and usually you might have to call them up or drop them an email, and there's emails backwards and forwards to find out if they've done that job. But if they're literally, once they've completed, you know, that job when it's logged there, then it just saves you the bother, doesn't it, of having to phone them up, because you can see, oh, it's done.
Yeah. And just to kind of give you some hope, look what's here, recent projects. So I didn't get to see exactly what that means or anything else, but the fact that the projects are starting to come into Payroll gives us hope, even if it's just a case of trying to simplify the ability to you know, to post time. So it might be a case that you can see what projects are there and you can clock in and post time against it, sort of idea. But yeah, hopefully there's going to be more seamless integration between Payroll and projects and all that sort of stuff. So,
well, just looking at that screen, it looks like, because you've got blueprint, design, Larson Media, and then at the top it says job, sales, solar company. So it looks like there are definitely different parts to that.
That would be brilliant, wouldn't it? If that could be what they, you know, what we're assuming it is, I think that could be really powerful.
Definitely.
And that's all mobile, so that's all on the mobile app. So that's pretty cool. So the final bit then I want to talk about, because we are just want to make sure we don't run out of time here for some of the actual enhancement to QuickBooks that we've seen. And the last bit they talked about was, just quickly on this one, and I'm very scared of this. The next announcement with the Payroll was this thing called early pay. So the idea that your employee could ask for an enhancement, or an enhancement up front of their actual pay. So I think this is back on the whole factoring thing again, isn't it? And the fact that your employee can take pay. I mean, scary world, isn't it, Ash? But I can see how that's going to be useful for people.
I think it's definitely got to be one of those features that you switch on and off and limited. If you were to do it, you definitely wouldn't. Let's just say, you can borrow up to £1,000. No, it's not happening. So,
exactly right. Exactly. Great shout here, though. Just before we move on, great shout here from Cherry Accountants there. Hopefully, Workforce will give employees the opportunity to invoice for you, because I know that is one of those sticking points, isn't it? Sometimes about giving too many people too many access, and if employees could invoice right there in that app, I think that'd be quite powerful, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So final bit of today's conference is the enhancement to QuickBooks Advanced. Now, I know we haven't got QuickBooks Advanced here just yet, but I'm pretty sure it must be coming at some point. So the first bit that I was surprised of their announcement was Performance Centers coming to QuickBooks Advanced. I mean, we've had Performance Center for a while, haven't we? As accountant only, but we've had it in our main product. So again, it's that little bit where it's a bit confusing as to when Advanced does come to the UK, like what features are going to be in Advanced, because we've already got them in the main version. So, but anyway,
perhaps we're just being spoiled and we don't even know it.
This is it. Yeah.
In the UK, I mean, to be fair, I think we've had a few advances on features. like all of the importing of the invoices and the bills, we had those first before, which is unusual.
Yeah, definitely. Because some of those features haven't even made it to the US version yet, have they? So
I don't think so. No.
So they got the announcement of Performance Center, which again was, I mean, to be fair, it looks a little bit more advanced than ours. So there is kind of maybe more features there. That could be it. And the fact it's client based, not accountant based, I suppose, is pretty big. But then kind of the big bits that were coming was, so this is still looking at Performance Center. Oh, we got a first look at our Excel integration. You know how we teased that last time about this whole Excel integration? Well, we got a bit of a look at how that would work. And yeah, it looks really, really slick. They said about the fact that it's all instant real time. They also said about the fact that you can update on Excel and it'll update it into QuickBooks. So you make an adjustment here, it will then make its way up into QuickBooks, and they will allow you to have multiple different companies attached as well. So if you've got a group structure, then this could be absolutely perfect for you. Now they're changing the cell. It'll go up into QuickBooks Online for you. So looks slick, doesn't it? I mean, I don't know if it'll ever make it to UK, but I would definitely find a big use out of that. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very clever. I mean, this is aimed really at your larger organisations, isn't it? Those that probably don't require, the full, ERP system. Don't quite, their own sort of bespoke, enterprise resource planning software. But QuickBooks Online is not enough for them.
Exactly.
And the advanced one will just give them those extra tools that they need. And I think they're probably still, like I mentioned earlier about why certain things don't always come across over here, is they're probably just still weighing up is how many UK businesses are going to want this.
Yeah.
And I suppose they're still trying, it's quite a difficult one, sort of, testing the market, because I think in the US, what is this, $150 a month, $175 a month?
Yeah.
And, to some people, they will think, oh my God, I worked that out in pounds. What's that going to be? £120 a month? I don't know what it might be. Some people will be absolutely horrified with paying that, because where you've got QuickBooks, which they could be paying 20 quid a month for, or even a lot less if their accountant's paying for it. And then it's 100. But if you then compared it to, and I don't mean any of the other software providers, but if you went to, some of these, I can't remember. The name
Workforce is one, isn't it?
But some of these sort of really big systems where it does your stock and it does this and it does that, and then you could be talking about £1,000 a month.
Yeah, exactly right, exactly.
Easily, because I've got a client, and one of the software tools that they have to use is a couple of £1,000 a month. And, yes, okay, it does all of their contracts and this and that, the other. So it does a lot for them, but it does actually no accounting.
Yeah. Because
we use QuickBooks for that.
Yeah, exactly.
But so that's where you've always got to weigh up, I think, with a lot of software is, okay, don't always be horrified at what that monthly cost might be when you actually try to compare it with all of the tools that you get and what time that could eventually save you. That's always the balancing act. Always do that. That's what I would always recommend to anyone, is work out how many hours that particular job takes you, and then give it an hourly rate of an employee. And if you're not saying that you need to get rid of your employees to anybody, but if it's a case of
costing, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but if it's a case of that, perhaps do you need to take an extra person on, or do you need just a bit of extra software?
Yeah,
and that could be the difference in cash flow for a business as to whether I can't afford to employ anybody, but you can't afford not to invest in some software sometimes.
Yeah, 100%. Especially with the features that they're looking to bring to the advanced one, because what they moved on to next was about this whole task management solution. So that could be really, really, really beneficial to people, couldn't it? They're finally getting an approval system, finally getting those sort of things into play where you can have that workflow that you've needed for businesses, and for those bigger businesses is huge. And what I thought was really interesting was this new AI element to it. So they talked about this QuickBooks AI, and the idea that based on the data sent, you're missing a field for the tracking number, so it's spotting things for you and or for your employees. So you get that nice clean data, and it's going to be spotting them for you. It mentioned a HubSpot integration, which I was very, very happy about, because HubSpot's a huge one for us. And then it's giving you the option to add tasks directly from here about chasing up an estimate and bringing those estimates in and trying to, create those workflows for you. So it's trying to really make Advance very, very exciting, I think, and something that for an accounting practice could be absolutely invaluable. Integration with HubSpot, integration with these new task elements to it. I can see myself getting rid of a lot of our other services we're paying for and just having it all in QuickBooks, which is the dream, isn't it, of having it there. And I thought this was really interesting. So this is them sending out an invoice, and suddenly we've got signature elements down here and like almost like a sign in. I think this is the DocuSign possibly integration being shown, but it's interesting how that can all flow into one, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's really nice. And back on those previous screens because I've been asked that before, I'm sure you have the same, Aaron, as when, can I get someone else to create the invoice and then someone else can approve it? And, and you've never really had that. Again, no. There are little workarounds where you can sort of, set it to be not, send later, but that's not the same as, creating and then approving by somebody else.
Yeah.
So I think that is really good. And I think the same, hopefully they'll have the same sort of thing with supplier bills as well, where you could create a bill and then approve it for payment, because that's something else that's always been sort of missing, really. We can whack loads of bills on and someone could just, pay them. But
and that's where Xero's been really powerful, hasn't it? That's one of the reasons you may choose to send a client to Xero over QuickBooks, because of the approval system. So definitely. So that document to sign, all that sort of stuff, that looked really good. And if that is what's coming to the advanced version, then, for me, I pay more than that subscription we talked about, and having an estimate sender and, approval solution and having all that lot. So I could even save our practice some money by just moving on to QuickBooks Advanced, but we'll see when it comes to UK and what offerings are coming. That was the QuickBooks USA one, which again was as we speak. It literally is now, so that's going through. Then we had the UK one a couple of weeks before, and honestly, I think I overhyped it in my own mind, because we've been a little bit starved of announcements lately, and I think I was expecting more. But when we think back to pre-pandemic, those events were those very small regional events, weren't they? So we never did get too much announcements or anything like that. But other than the QuickBooks, it's a bit that we will talk about slowly a little bit at the end. There wasn't really much announced there, which is a little bit of a shame, but that's the thing. And unfortunately, we've still just had the spring update, so we've had nothing since then, which is maybe one day we'll get some updates on that one.
Yeah, I think summer and autumn's probably gone. I'm sure it's winter nearly, isn't it?
It definitely feels it, doesn't it? I don't think you get many announcements in winter, do you? So maybe we'll just skip the rest of 2021 and wait for 2022 announcements. Okay, next point of news. It's just a really, really quick one, really. And I think this is just an interesting one that I spotted, just really to kind of get you thinking about really what the future might hold in terms of banking. And we've always spoke about this, but with MTD around the corner and everything that comes through, in my bank, I was offered this option. I was offered the option for, why is that not going through? I'll just share screen, it'll be easier. So I don't know how easy you're going to be able to see this, but I was given the option to have a business toolkit to my bank account. And this business toolkit, as I went through just showing what options were available, was starts at £0 a month. And it's how I can record and submit my VAT directly from my bank account. I can record my transactions, and then it goes to £7 per month. And you also get no tax surprises because it estimates your tax bill for you as well. So that's kind of giving you a bit of an example of where we're going, doesn't it, in terms of the banks starting to move in a little bit on the kind of on QuickBooks and
and maybe that's why QuickBooks are going into the banking area, because they're thinking, and I think it'll all happen. I mean, personally, I wish in some ways people would just stay in their own lane. You stay at what you're good at. You stay at what you're good at, because sometimes if you start doing too many other things, you sort of lose sight of the things that you were good at, and things can sometimes dip a little bit. And it's, I mean, that's just my own personal view. I mean, that's why I, for years and years and years, I stuck as a QuickBooks advisor, and I've got nothing personal against the other software providers. But if I want to be an absolute expert in that field, then I might as well just concentrate on the one. And it's easy for me. I was a one-man band. I didn't have employees. If I had a large team, then I might have said, okay, well, you can be the Sage expert, and you can be the Zero expert, and so on. But I think sometimes when you a little bit good at certain things, it's not quite the same. Anyway,
I completely agree.
We're going to go over time, Aaron.
We'll be fine. But I completely agree. And I think there's definitely certain clients where this will be perfect for. So I'm thinking more of a, if you've got a rental property and MTD's a worry, something like that, then, it makes sense maybe that you just use your bank and you just go from there. But yeah, it's interesting that they're jumping into that spot. And like you said, the software won't be anywhere near as powerful or anything like that. So we'll see what comes through. This is an actual update to QuickBooks. So although we weren't announced any enhancements to it, I have spotted one. The only thing about being spotted this, though, is I now can't find it again. So let me show you what I did find. We've been talking about this for a while. This is the idea of your bank statements coming into QuickBooks Online automatically. So the idea is you go to reconcile your bank, and you'll see there, very faint in the background, you'll see there is that option to view statements, which got me very, very excited. This was a NatWest client. But I pressed the view statement button, and I had all of these statements nicely lined up for me, telling me which ones were reconciled and which ones were unreconciled, which I thought was really exciting. The other thing as well was, if I just jumped to this other view, was when I went in and had a look a little bit further, and this bit that's completely new to us, is the idea that we can now go in and attach our bank statements directly to the reconciliation point. So very, very small update, but I think this is huge. What do you think, Ash?
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I love it. I love the other one as well, and it's fantastic if you can get the direct feed and you're able to pull the statement down. I mean, that's great. But even just if you can't have that, that's not as good. But just being able to attach it from an accountant's point of view, just as a reconciliation check, just to make sure that was a real statement that I looked at. That's really good. Yeah. I like it.
I mean, the amount of times that I've had to question someone's reconcile, like if a client's reconciled something, I'm like, are they sure that was right? And now I would know for sure. So it's just solving it. And I joked about when I did the video for this find that, and it is true. Like my team spends most of the time asking clients now for bank statements and asking them to bring it in. But if we can just click a button, get our own bank statements, then what a way this would be. Going forward. We'll talk about it at the end, but about the pencil in the chart of accounts, I'm pretty sure that was already there, but we'll talk about that at the end.
Yeah, I'm just logging in while you're using it to have a look.
Okay, next one then. Dashboard. I was going to bring up the fact that dashboard is evolving, but I couldn't find any photos. Do keep an eye on your dashboard. If you have connected to Payroll, there's a new dashboard element to it. I've seen this popping up to a few of them where it's starting to talk about time and how time has been allocated and everything else. So that could be a nice one to bring forward. QuickBooks, and I was surprised about this, but QuickBooks Self-Employed has had an update. Now, the update is really small. It adds tags to it. But I was surprised that was going to be something that was come through, because to me, I wasn't sure that the tags was going to be something that was going to come into QuickBooks Online, in QuickBooks Self-Employed. But what surprised me the most is, in my mind, and I don't know what you felt about this, Ash, but I felt like tags was going the way of a dodo. So the fact that there's still updates coming the way means that maybe QuickBooks Self-Employed is going to carry on, and maybe they're going to make it so MTD compliant going forward. What do you think?
Yeah, it's an unusual one, because in my head, QuickBooks Self-Employed is for the basic of the basic. For the person that just has the swipe left, it's business; swipe right, it's personal, and doesn't put much thought into it. So to then, put more thought into self-employed as to, this needs to go to a different sort of pot, or an extra pot. So as well as it going to stationery, I'm going to put it to somewhere else as well. Interesting one. Perhaps it was just one of those things that was easy to do, so they just did it.
That could be it. Yeah.
That's the only thing I can think of.
Because we're about to, I'm just going to quickly go through and show you the first look at it. So that's our last topic for today. So QuickBooks Online's MTD, Making Tax Digital ITSA. So for self-employed, the first look. And actually it's really been useful, because as accountants, we're obviously preparing for Making Tax Digital and how that world's going to go and everything else that comes with it. But the idea of seeing this first ITSA implementation is really powerful, because it gave us an opportunity to look at it and everything else. But as you can see here, it's quite an enhanced feature. I think a lot of us have kind of not really brought on play of how much is going to be involved. And I just don't think QuickBooks Self-Employed would ever have that capability. It seems like there's going to be a lot of time and investment having to be made to QuickBooks Self-Employed to make it compliant. So I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too harsh on QuickBooks Self-Employed. I actually really like the software. It's I've got clients who use it, but in my mind I was feeling like surely that's a too big an ask to be able to bring QuickBooks Self-Employed into QuickBooks. But we'll see. But here is the first look at QuickBooks Self-Employed, QuickBooks Making Tax Digital Income Tax Self-Assessment. So the idea here, it's going to live within your taxes area under self-employed, income tax just there. So there's your VAT, there's your payroll tax. And the idea here is that we have almost like a traffic light system. So you can see here we've got red to say that it's not been submitted, yellow to say that it's been submitted and there's been an adjustment, and blue in this case is to say that it's not actually due yet, but it's in progress. And you get these 4 quarters you have to file each and every quarter. And the interesting thing is when you submit one, it's going to look like this. All of this is going to be mapped out for you based on what you've got in QuickBooks Online. It's going to show you what your business income, business expenses is, net profit or loss. And as soon as you press submit, so we go through and look at the information, we press submit, it's going to start giving you an estimate for what your tax bill is going to be at the top there. And then you get to see an estimate of the breakdown of how that's made as well. So we go through it, I'll tell you how it's been broken down, and you can see the item. Now, one of the interesting things I learned is that if you make any changes to a quarter, as you can see here, green means it's been submitted, yellow means that there's some problems. And the problem in here is you've made changes to that quarter. You're allowed to send as many revisions as you want for each individual quarter. So every time a change is made, you can make a revision, and you can't submit your final return, so your final statement, until you've made all your revisions. So you have to have 4 green ticks. So that little traffic light system has to be, all 4 of them have to be green. Then at the very end, you're able to submit information to HMRC. What I found really interesting, though, is this final bit, was the fact that adjustments at the moment is just going to be a plus button. So, they've got legal expenses that were not previously included. They've got other aspects here that's not there. I did ask a question about what's going to happen with any disallowable expenses, and they haven't got an answer for that just yet. We did ask about, or you can see how losses are going to be done, and this could be useful for you, Ash. Their whole way of doing capital allowances is just a plus button there. So you might need a piece of software like Fixed Asset Register, NetTracker, to be able to figure out what's going to go into that position. But basically, they're going to, that's the information that's going to get sent out. You press submit to HMRC, and away you go. So I know I've quickly gone through, but personally, I think that implementation of it, I think it looks quite slick and tidy. But what's your thoughts on it, Ash?
Yeah, I think it's really good. And back to the different categories, this is when it's going to be really important in QuickBooks, where you've got your chart of account and you've got your type, where your detail type that's when it's really going to come into its own. Because over the years, people haven't really taken much notice of detail type on a lot of the chart of account codes, but that will be important for those. But no, it looks really nice, and it's sort of what I was expecting, to be honest. I was if I had imagined it, it was very similar to submitting VAT in a way, but doing it with your 4. So it was good.
Yeah, and in fact, it gives you the estimate as well. I think it's going to help. Final bit, just bring up, there was a Q&A at the section, so you can see there's a Q&A going through here. And the questions I asked and got some really good positive answers were, all I told you about just how to handle disallowable. The actual answer that came back was the fact that, you can always put it to drawings, which I'm not quite sure is the answer we're looking for. But at the moment, that's the solution they're going for, is that if you've got a disallowable expense, stick it to drawings. I'm sure that'll get changed before final release. So QBOSE, I did ask, is that planned for it? And it was a bit of a unsatisfactory response, is one to a better word. But the bit that failed me with confidence, though, was I did ask that, what about VAT error checker? Is there any way that we could see a VAT error checker-esque it's a checker? And it looks like that, or hopefully, fingers crossed, with a little cheeky smile there, that should be something that looking likely. So fingers crossed on that one, because I think the more of those VAT error checkers, the more AI we can get in there, the more accurate we can get that work going forward, can't we?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that it's really important in any sort of submission, really, of any kind, and you got to sort of think of it in almost the same way as, when it comes to preparing a set of accounts. I mean, we're sort of talking as accountants here, so your standard business user probably won't think that automatically the same way. But as an accountant, if you're given a job to create a set of accounts, then what we get is a trial balance, and you might start at the top and gradually work through every account until you've checked it, starting with the balance sheet, and then you go through the P&L, and does everything that's in there, is it supposed to be in there? And that's essentially what we're doing when we're doing a VAT return. Is everything on there? Is it supposed to be there? And it should be exactly the same when we come to do your submissions for self-assessment. Is that a cost? Should it be there? Yes or no? It's as simple as that in one way, isn't it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's it can be, like I said, it can be as simple as that, and with that little bit of AI checking and everything else, it can just make it so much cleaner, can't it? So
I've got loads of ideas, and my consultancy fees are extremely reasonable.
I know.
While I'm doing it, I'm sort of thinking, this is what I would do. if I was going to create one, I know exactly how I would lay it out.
Those common mistakes that we as accountants find day in, day out, isn't it?
Yeah.
Going through. And I had one more piece of news. I know we're running out of time fast here, but the last piece of news, and I can't find the actual email to go through the numbers with you, but just be aware that there is a price increase for QuickBooks starting in January. Off the top of my head, the highest increase is from £30 to £32 for QuickBooks Plus. So maybe an indication that QuickBooks Advanced is closer than we think, and maybe they're trying to get that in line, maybe, possibly, trying to bridge that gap. I'm hoping here it's more of a plea than anything else going forward.
Possibly.
Yeah. The QuickBooks, I'm going from the top of my head here, but QuickBooks Simple Start was unchanged, so that's still same price. And there was a £2 increase to QuickBooks Essentials as well, which makes me wonder, possibly, with QuickBooks Self-Employed kind of being a little bit of a Day of the Dodo sort of idea, do we lose QuickBooks Essentials and we have Plus Essentials and Advanced? Plus, Simple Start Plus and Advanced maybe as kind of 3-tier approach going forward. Yeah. Who knows? We shall see. Anything else that I've missed there? Ash, I don't think I have.
I don't think so. We've got one or two. I think, I don't mind running
that pencil icon. I really want to cover this pencil icon because in my mind it's always been there. But
I did have a look in the chart of accounts.
Have I got that wrong?
The pencil icon at the top right of the list has always been there for the batch edit, and I can't see any other pencil icons.
So do let us know if we're missing that one, Charity Accountants, because for us it's always been there. But maybe I thought we always trained it as well. I thought that was part of the.
We did always train it in the as the
batch
edit feature.
It was in the core, wasn't it? We talked about that.
It used to be in there. Yeah. I don't know if we've got any. If anyone else has got any other questions they might want to ping through.
There's a good one here again from Chariot about how the fact that self-employed is a great one for MTD. And, when I'm saying I think it's going the way of the dodo, I feel like that solution is the problem. I think that, and if it was me, I would take that front end of QuickBooks Self-Employed and I would somehow attach it to QuickBooks Online and be almost like a different flavor of QuickBooks Online. But that I can't imagine that's an easy fix or something that will get done straight away. But that's how I would probably look at it more than.
I know exactly what you mean, Aaron. I think the problem is that it was built on a completely different platform.
Exactly.
To all of the others. So as a NAT provider, we wouldn't bother, integrating with it.
Well, you can't. There is no API, is there?
No. Well, there isn't no API. And even if there was, you'd think, well, how many users are going to actually use it? Do you know what I mean? And that would be the same for nearly all of them. Yeah. So, it is. It's like it was a good idea. But just bring it into the main product. Bring that idea, exactly what you just said. Bring the idea of QuickBooks Self-Employed.
The UI. Keep the UI, but let's have the back end of QuickBooks. And I think we'd have to win it. That isn't an easy fix, is it? Let's be honest. That's not a overnight job. But if we have unlimited money and unlimited time, that's what we want.
You say that, but all you got to do is think, okay, well, what do we want in QuickBooks Self-Employed? We want it pretty much exactly the same as QuickBooks Online, but we want a static chart of accounts that you can't change, which is what they've sort of got.
Yeah.
And you've only got what you could sort of have like 3 products or services. So to me, that in my simple brain, that doesn't seem like a particularly difficult thing, because you could say, okay, well, I'll just basically copy QuickBooks Online Simple Start and say, well, you've got Simple Start and you can only have these chart of accounts and nothing else.
You're exactly right.
And this is job done, isn't it?
But I think
okay, Intuit, you can write the check.
And I think you can also see how they could market that as well, because they'd have QuickBooks Self-Employed or whatever they're going to call it is that lower. You know, I was saying that they'll have 3 tiers.
Yeah.
You can see the chat box is like, well, if you upgrade, you get to have your own chart of accounts. You can add to your chart of accounts. It's not static anymore. You know what I mean? And that's always like a perk to get to subscribe up, isn't it? So yeah, exactly. Okay, I think we are over time, which we do apologize to everyone. Apologies for that one. Great final point there from Charity Accountants as well about the sign up for the Apple Store. The only way to get out of the Apple Store situation is ask them to disconnect from the Apple Store, stop paying from that, sign back in, put it on their own card, then you can take over them. It's an absolute palaver, but that's the only way we can do it for now. Many a time have we had to jump through those hoops to get a client on board with us. Okay, Ash, when are we due next?
So we are due next, Aaron, on Wednesday, the 1st of December. We may need to adjust the time because I think we've got our sort of annual sort of training meeting on that day. But we'll keep you posted nearer the time. So I think we'll still be able to probably still do it about 4:30. I've got to imagine that our session might finish a bit earlier, but we shall see.
Yeah. I just remembered that we got asked if we want beer or wine, though. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that goes when we move over. But yeah, we'll definitely keep you keep you informed via our social channels. Don't forget, if you're listening via podcast, don't forget to follow us on Facebook so you can join us live on a future episode. Which reminds me, Ash. Oh, you've already said that when you're back. And any videos or etc. planned at the moment? And what about your book? Just give a little bit of a shout out for it before we move on.
Yes, my book is available for pre-order on Amazon. Just search for professional tips and workarounds for QuickBooks Online. There you have it. It will save you a fortune on consultancy fees.
we should really
get for Christmas.
We should get ourselves some sort of affiliate link for that for QuickBooks for QB Labs. Any QB Labs watcher, you should click on this link and job done. But yeah, I think that's personally, I think it's a great book. I've had the privilege to be able to read it before, and I think it's some great tips in there. I learned a thing or two, so that can tell you a lot. So it's definitely the perfect stocking filler in my eyes. Just to get you all up to date on some videos that I've got coming up. We've just released a video about what we just talked about today, so making tax digital ITSA, and also that reconciliation process. But I have got some other videos I've got planned looking at some other features that are coming soon. So do have a look at the YouTube channel. With that then, I think it's just, again, apologies for being a little bit over, but it is a goodbye from me.
And a goodbye from me.
And we will see you all soon in a month's time. And I'm trying to press the outro now. Bye.